Well, welcome back to Carolina Saltwater Living, y'all. Been having a problem with my battery in my truck. I recently replaced my battery because I'd come out after it being parked for 3 or 4 days and the battery would be completely dead. So I put a new battery in, and it wasn't long before the same thing was happening all over again. I thought maybe I had a problem in my pigtail for my trailer, but after disconnecting that, same thing happened. So I knew I had a parasitic draw of some type, and I have never tried tracing one out. So I called up my brother Wesley, who put pretty much, I think, YouTube, when they decided, hey, we want to make some kind of platform that shows people how to do stuff. They probably consulted with my brother because he pretty much knows it all. So I called him up and he said, get your ohm meter out, and showed me how to set it up, told me how to, and start pulling fuses. Well, I did all that. Couldn't find a draw anywhere. It is so small of a draw that I couldn't find it. So I've had this thing on a trickle charge for a few days. Let's see what I'm reading here. 13.08 volts. I know you can't see that because it's turned towards me, but that's what it is, 13.08. Fully charged battery. And when I crank the truck, it'll shoot up to about 15 because the alternator is functioning properly. So, I don't know why I didn't think about this, but when I was talking to my brother the other night, we both had this idea pop into our heads. I'm not sure who it popped into first, but I said, you know, on the boat, I've got one of these things that you can turn on and off to cut the batteries on and off. And he said, yeah, that worked perfect. That way you can just, I've been leaving the negative side off so that the battery won't draw. But this right here, I'm going to install it. I just put it together. At least I got it off Amazon for me for like, I don't know, 15 bucks maybe. And when I get done at the end of the day on a job and come home, and I know that I'm not going to be leaving the next morning, I'll just open up the hood, switch that thing to off where it's sitting at now. It switches like that, just like on a boat. And it will cut the feed. It'll cut that cycle so that no parasitic draw can happen, even so minute that I can't detect with the meter. So I'm going to install this thing. It's not going to be hard to do at all. It's already put together. I put the thing together on the kitchen table. So let me see if I can squeeze it down in here. It's kind of tight working conditions. And here's that device up underneath here because there's a brace that I'm trying to not take off if I can help it up underneath here, and I can already tell that I'm going to have to reposition this just a little bit. Fortunately, it spins pretty easy. See how this is going to work now. Still not going to fit back there. Let me try a different approach. All right, it's going to be a pain in the butt. I bought the one that you can angle because I knew that it was going to be tight in here. Let me get this thing out of my way, this side support, this fender support, and see if I can get in here and get this thing mounted. All right, I got it on there. It's not perfect. I had to actually take this side over here that I'm pointing to with my finger, turn it upside down, stick a washer in. I could probably put a couple of more washers to make this connection point go further. The problem is that the battery top over here would not allow the switch device to sit on top. There was not enough depth to put this on, but I've got it on there about halfway and it's firm. So it's going to make that connection that I need. Now if I can just get that brace back in there, I think it's going to be fine. All right, let's see here if I can get that in here. It's going to be a tight squeeze to turn the thing on and off, but I'll be able to do it. Oh yeah, this is going to work. I tell you, when vehicles start getting old, they start nickeling and diming you. And that's what this truck is doing. It's kind of a nickel and dimer, but it's still cheaper than a payment on a new one. Although I about guarantee you, what I'd really like to have is a ton dump truck, 4-wheel drive, 9-foot bed on it, so that I can eliminate the need for that dump trailer. I would much rather have a single truck. If I need to move dirt around on a job, I'd have a 4-wheel drive truck to be able to do that on site. I'd rather have an articulating dumper. What was it my papa used to say? Wish in one hand, spit in the other, see what you get first. I think there's another way to say that too, but for YouTube purposes, we'll say spit. All right. Now, I can reach in there just barely and cut that joker to on. We're live. We are live, thank goodness. And the whole purpose of this thing is not to drain my battery, so I'll cut it back off for now until I need to crank the truck. Good cold water. I really like these water bottles that we use from Epic Water Filters out in Boulder, Colorado. Nice cold water, y'all. Good, clean, filtered water straight out of the tap. Always a link in the description if you care to purchase something like that using Carolina Saltwater Living as a discount code. I can't remember what the discount is, but I know several people have bought them and have let us know that they really like them as well. I wanted to talk about something that happened out here the other day. And I came in Lisa's little sewing shop because it's cool in here and it's quiet in here. Too hot outside and people running lawnmowers and stuff, so I wanted to just kind of get right here in a quiet setting with you guys that are willing to sit and listen here. So a couple of days ago, one of my neighbors came down, one of our elderly neighbors, and needed to have some appliances pulled out of their house. They had some new ones coming. These things were old and they were unsafe. And so the neighbor asked me, he said, hey, you've been pretty friendly with some other neighbors on another street over. And I knew he was talking about some Hispanic men that live in a rental unit and do construction work. And as a matter of fact, I have made sure to make friends with everybody around us because I want everybody to associate my face and my name with friendly neighbor. Coming from a background in law enforcement, I have not spread that around to our neighbors. But a certain few, you know, because I really just don't want everybody to know what I did for a living prior, because they could have ill intentions. Not saying that they would, but you just don't ever know these days. You don't ever know. So I kind of made friends with these guys. But I speak Spanish, and that helps. I never claim to be 100% fluent. So anybody that says I am are mistaken. But I've never been stumped. I used to interpret on my patrol shift. Any shift I was on, I interpreted for. Until we started hiring some folks that it was their first language. And I still did it occasionally, but anyways, I made friends. Taking them food, clothing, Bibles, all kinds of stuff. Life lessons, conversations, that sort of thing. And I have even put one of the gentlemen to work with me some on occasion as a helper, running a saw. And I decided to come over and try to get their help because the neighbor asked me to. And this was, I want to say it was a Saturday morning, early too, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So I go to get a hold of these neighbors. They're back behind us a little ways, not too far away. And I knocked on the front door. It was open. I knocked on the screen door. One of the gentlemen came to me, and he doesn't speak any English, so I spoke to him in Spanish and asked him if they were willing to help and where was so-and-so, because I wanted to speak to him and make sure he was willing to do it too. They would get paid, the neighbor would pay them to assist. And I would rather them do it because it's a two-man job, and I'd rather them get paid than me get paid by my neighbor to drag something and hurt my knees or my back or something like that when I've got grading work I need to be doing. And so everything would be provided for them, hand trucks, all that sort of thing. It'd take all of 15, 20 minutes. So I asked the gentleman, I said, where is so-and-so? And I had noticed a minivan with a certain color, certain tinted windows in the driveway that I had seen one time that I can recall many months ago. And I knew that a lot of different vehicles were in and out from time to time, so at first I didn't think anything about it. Well, he pointed, and he was pointing like he didn't want to be seen that he was pointing, and he said, he's right there. So I step over to the minivan, and I notice in the front seat, slumped over a bit, were two ladies, and I'll say ladies, that's probably not really what they were. They were females, but they were probably not ladies. Had a couple of teeth in their head, and I knocked on the back window. I saw my friend, I consider him my friend, slumped over trying to hide from me in the back seat. And so I broke into some perfect Spanish, y'all. And this gentleman speaks English, but I didn't want to embarrass him in front of anybody within earshot that did speak English. So perfect English is coming out. I said, open that door. It's like police turned right back on, y'all, and it's May of 2022 is when I resigned after 15 years of service. And I have tried my best to turn that part of my life off because I don't like living with hypervigilance all the time. It's not good for your health. But all of a sudden, I was hypervigilant. My tone changed. I started giving verbal commands, clear and precise, concise. And so he stepped out of the van, head hung down. I can't smell to this day after that COVID. I can't smell to this day. I was starting to get it back a little bit, but then I had another brush with that junk back in the late winter, early spring. Can't taste or smell, but in the back of my throat, I was able to somewhat taste what I associate with the smell of an illegal substance that's made into a crack-like form. I'm trying to use words that maybe won't get me gigged on here. I could tell it had recently been burnt in that vehicle. And I could tell by looking at my neighbor, my friend, whom I had been friendly with. And I immediately told the ladies, I said, burn the road up. Don't come back ever. Don't let me ever see your van back over here. Yes, sir. They were gone. I think they recognized that by my tone and my mannerisms that there might be a little bit more to me than just the neighbor across the street. And so he broke down crying right there. I'm sorry, because he was ashamed that he had been caught in his sin. I've been caught in sin before in my younger years of life, y'all. It's shameful. It's embarrassing. Does it always make you stop? No, it doesn't. Only thing that will assist you in stopping that is developing a true relationship with Jesus, that saved by grace, believing in what he did for us on the cross through the shedding of his blood, his death, burial, and resurrection, defeating death, hell, and the grave. And if you believe that and confess it with your mouth, you are saved. And there's a change that will start inside of you. It may not happen instantaneously. Some people it does, and that's awesome. wasn't really that way for me. Yes, certain things changed immediately. My outlook on life, I turned my back on living in sin. I did that. Now, do stumble and fall from time to time because I'm made out of dirt. I'm human. And God knows that, but we're covered in the blood. Anyways, I'm sure that many of you have been in this same type situation. Maybe not like my friend, who's doing better, by the way. I was really upset. I had a real come to Jesus meeting with him right there in the yard of where he stays at, informing him that if I saw that van again, if I saw anything out of line, I'd be calling the law because I wasn't putting up with drugs in my backyard or prostitution, because that's what I caught him in. Prostitution and drug use. In the act. Not the first time, but I sure hope it's the last time I ever experience anything like that. For years and years and years. That's what I did, y'all. Caught people doing that stuff, and it just leaves a scar on your brain the longer you do it. But later in the day, when I cooled off, I will tell you, I went back. He was still in tears, ashamed. I prayed with him. I hugged him. I explained to him something he didn't know, and that was my former profession, my former life. His eyes went as big as silver dollar pieces because he was scared to death that I'd be calling the law out there, and all kinds of bad could happen for them in that situation. But I didn't do that. I decided to be 911 for myself, and I think sometimes you can do that. I think it depends on the circumstance. But ever since that day, every time I speak to this individual, his eyes are clear. I do not see any sign of drug use, things of this nature. Tells me he's reading his Bible a little bit, but I'll tell you one thing I told him: you cannot trust a dope head. I learned that through years and years of working. So he knows that I do not trust him right now. Now, I am praying that he will come to Christ. And I have laid it out there for him multiple times, he and his friends. And I'm just praying that that will be the case. In the meantime, what he told me was that he was just tempted way too much. He had all that money in his pocket from working with me for a few days because he had been out of work. And see, that's why I didn't notice this going on. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any money to go buy this illicit product or the females. And so once he had a wad of cash in his pocket, he decided to use it in that way. So I wanted to explain to him something that no, he said, I'm tempted by this, and it's, I don't know why God, he said, I don't know why Dio's tempting me. Like, nope, God don't tempt you like that. And I'm going to explain to you what I showed him. And this is out of James. I actually had this in our Bible study, and got 4 80-year-old men that we get together. I'm not 80, obviously, but we get together once a month and have a Bible study, have a good old time, and we're going verse by verse through the book of James. Well, this past week, James chapter 1:13, I'm going to start here and read it. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. My goal with my neighbor is to help him avoid death. And all he has to do is confess with his mouth and believe in his heart that Christ is Lord. And I believe he'll do that. I believe time's short too, guys. I believe it is very short. You hear that if you've grown up in church at all. You hear soon and very soon. Well, I'm telling you, I really believe it's soon. And I agree with a whole lot of other Christians around the world that believe it is very, very, very soon. Guys, I hope that you got a little bit of something out of this. Maybe you learned how to put a simple disconnect on your car battery if it's draining down on you, so you don't have to keep going out there and draining your battery down and jumping it off and having to buy batteries because you're running the charge out and ruining batteries. At the very least, you can source some ideas on how to do parasitic draw tests on YouTube. There's some great stuff out there on that. It's very easy. But the main thing is that you heard the gospel right here. And you heard that God is not going to tempt you. You are tempted when you are drug away by your own evil desires. And we are all born into this world imperfect. And we have Jesus that's already been before us and has provided a way for us to be cleansed from all that imperfection, all the sin that's born into us, guys. That's how it goes. So when you get old enough and you understand who Jesus is, it's time to acknowledge him. And if you haven't, and you're getting older in life, get her done. Guys, y'all have a good day and a great week. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise too high. We'll see you on the next one. Plan on going fishing if that hurricane will stay offshore. We'll see you.